Thanks very much, Governor, and Tuan. There have been many interesting and useful comments here today. I think Sean's talking about the need for some kind of comprehensive national strategy for China, extremely important. A couple of different ways of looking at that are hard power, soft power, smart power. And we have to think about the soft power aspects. On the dime, we talked about the military side. I'm going to bring two small suggestions that are on the DI and E side. The first one is that in the last paragraph of Bill Hayden's book, he talks about the need to de-escalate the South China Sea, that Taiwan can play a very important role because they actually developed the map in 1947 on which the line is based. I spent a very interesting hour with a Taiwan scholar, an international legal scholar, this summer, looking at that map. And if you look at it, there's a line in the upper left-hand corner, which is the land border of Vietnam and China. And then the same type of line comes into the South China Sea, but it's separated by dashes. His interpretation of that is this is not a settled boundary. This is subject to negotiation between the parties. This is not the story that we hear from China about this. But it kind of takes the wind out of the sail for China. If in fact this is an informational point, this is an eye out of the dime. That one point that we could pursue. It might be worth inviting some of these Taiwan scholars to talk to us in more detail. The second point that I wanted to bring up is, and I'm sorry the Japanese consul had to leave early because they played a very important part in this. And that is that, if you remember, on September 25th and 26th of 2012, after the so-called nationalization of the Senkaku Diaoyu Islands, that the fleet from Suao Harbor in Taiwan came up and was repulsed from the islands by the Japanese Coast Guard in what looked like a fog of war photos at the time. Very dangerous. There could have been encounters. There could have been collision. There could have been a ship sinking. And but somehow President Ma Ying-jeou of Taiwan and Prime Minister Abe of Japan had a statesmanship moment where they decided that they would break the impasse in negotiations of 16 years of negotiations that had failed to come to a fishing agreement between Taiwan and Japan. And that spring, in April, they actually concluded that fishing agreement. So I went to ask questions about, how did this happen? How is it actually being implemented? Is it a success? Is it not? So, short agreement, a couple of pages, 5 articles, but good description of an area 3 times the size of Taiwan that is now a joint fishing area between the parties. The big areas of discussion between them are in the southern part where there's a triangle that's almost right over the Okinawa Trench, and on the east side where there's a quadrilateral. So there are zones in here where there's the most conflict between fishing boats between Taiwan and Japan. And so the fishing committee that was set up in Article 3 of the agreement meets at least once a year, and they have managed to sort out the hard problems of whether to fish west or north-south. The nets are 40 kilometers long, 25 miles long. They cross. The Taiwan nets are much heavier. The Japanese equipment is destroyed. This big problem. But the committee has been able to work this out. They're working hard. There are 2 small triangular areas that are not settled yet, but they're still on the negotiating table. So I just wanted to bring this up as an example of something out of the diplomacy and economic side that Taiwan is now involved in negotiating fishing agreement with the Philippines, moving to the South China Sea, and so that this is a model that could go on with Vietnam, perhaps. Examples. It's food for thought.
So there is hope for a little constructive dialogue. Professor Ogden.